So, welcome to part one of today's lesson. Today's lesson, we are going to focus on the transportation revolution and how we went into transportation and how that dictated industry, how that dictated society as a whole. In this part of the lesson, we are going to talk about westward movements, like spreading west beyond the Appalachian Mountains. And before we begin this talk, I'm going to point out this term that we covered before, but we have not talked about it as a lesson. That's coming up in a few more videos. But this term called manifest destiny. And I even gave you a definition on the board so you can track. It's the belief that God wanted us, the United States, to spread from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. This is how America justified this westward migration to the Pacific Ocean. So let's start. By the mid-19th century, the American economy that had been based on local commerce and small-scale farming was maturing into a dynamic, wide-reaching capitalist marketplace, as we discussed in the last lesson. As the Industrial Revolution in the Northeast altered the economy and incentivized the process of urbanization, an agricultural empire began to emerge in the West. By 1860, more than one half of the American population was located west of the Appalachian Mountains. Conditions along the entire Atlantic seaboard stimulated migration to the westward region. The soil in New York, England, was incapable of producing agricultural crops beyond a subsistence level, resulting in a steady stream of men and women moving west to take advantage of the rich land in the interior of the continent. Many people in the Carolinas, Virginia, and the Deep South also moved westward because they had exhausted the soil. A lot of them moved near the Mississippi River because it provided a means for getting their products to the coastal markets. So this westward movement was a result of them outgrowing the soil, looking for more farmlands for this boom of industrialization, looking for more room to spread out, and socially for people who are looking for more farmlands for themselves and their family to spread out. In the early 19th century, life was grim for the first pioneer families, who were poorly fed, ill, ill-clothed, ill-clad, and housed in hastily built houses. Many trudged on foot over 100 miles dragging crude carts loaded with their scanty possessions. More fortunate pioneers traveled on horseback or in wagons. The best known was the canvas top covered wagons. You guys seen it. You guys seen it. It's the Oregon Trail when you were in elementary school. You guys learned, you guys watch cartoons with that wagon. It's that wagon. Pulled by horses or oxen. These wagons were waterproof, enabled pioneers to travel further, and allowed families to travel together and bring more of their possessions. This incentivized the westward movement because they did it in style, sort of say. As the 19th century wore on and more settlers moved west, conditions improved. Many became farmers as well as hunters, and flourishing settlements began to change the face of the West. Land speculators bought large tracts of the cheap land, sold their holdings for a profit, and moved further west, making way for new settlers. Artisans and merchants soon followed the farmers west. Rapid growth in the West was the norm. Chicago, Illinois in 1830 was simply a trading village with a fort, but long before some of its original settlers died, it had become one of the largest and richest cities of the nation. Imagine Chicago today being the richest and largest city of the nation. Farmland in the West was easy to acquire. A new land law in 1820 reduced the minimum price of government land from $1.64 to $1.25 per acre, and the minimum plot size from 160 to 80 acres. Westerners continued to push for greater relaxation of land laws. And under the Preemption Act of 1830, squatters were allowed to stake out claims ahead of the governmental land surveyors, and later got 160 acres at the minimum price of $1.25 per acre. Then after the 1862 Homestead Act, labor land could be claimed by merely occupying and improving it. So they were giving out land like hotcakes, basically, because this all the relaxed land laws encouraged settlers and landowners to come move further west to improve the society. Pioneer families first had to clear the trees and grub out the stumps and other underbrush, but then they could grow their own grain, vegetables, and fruits. They also ranged the woods for wild game, fished the nearby streams, and raised livestock. They usually planted their first crop in a natural glade, and then year by year they pushed back the trees until the land was cleared. They discovered corn was very versatile. It could be fed to livestock or distilled into liquor. and it rapidly became the Western farmer's staple market item. Much of the Westerners' harvest was sent down the Ohio Mississippi River system to the booming cotton kingdom in the South. We'll learn about that next lesson. The Mississippi River and its tributaries provided a natural highway for Western commerce. So, in order to get land in the West, they had to improve the land conditions and make the West inhabitable. Planting grains, raising livestock, making roads, canals. Westerners were continually finding ways to bring more land into civilization. Unfortunately, when they reached the strictly black soil of the treeless prairies, their wooden plows would break, making it nearly impossible to plant. The innovators of the time helped the farmers overcome the challenges they faced. In 1837, John Deere invented a steel plow that could break the soil and was light enough to be pulled by horses. In 1834, Cyrus McComish invented a mechanical mower reaper that transformed the scale of American agriculture. Farmers using hand-operated sickles and scythes could only harvest half an acre of wheat a day, while McCormish Reaper and two men could work 12 acres a day. So the technical advances helped the people settle in the West more efficiently. With all of the technological advances and continual movement to the West, farming had become a major commercial activity by the 1850s. Large-scale, specialized cash crop culture dominated the trans-Allegheny West. Soon the volume of agriculture products became more than the South could consume. However, before the farming community could do more than ship their produce downriver, a transportation revolution would have to occur that would enable them to send foodstuff east and west. And that's what we are talking about in part 2 of this lesson, innovative transportation. See you guys then.